Alright, so we're finally back on our wonderful land of grassy hills with 60 seconds. It's been quite some time since I did the last video. It would have been at least a couple of months back, I think. And yeah, work and life and everything has just been really busy, but we're finally almost at holiday season, so hopefully we'll get a few more videos going across this period, which will be great. Now, this game was a game against Seer. Oh, it would have been a couple of weeks back now. So Seer's running a Swallowing Pit book, which is a counter meta book to, I guess you could say, standard 60 Grassy. Swallowing Pit is obviously a great counter to a lot of the minions that exist in Grassy Hills, and one of them being the Dark Knight. So I guess the way that the book operates, just from a very, very broad perspective, you've got Swallowing Pit for the Dark Knight. You eliminate one of the biggest tempo swings and one of the main threats in the set. It also deals with any straggler minions. If you're ever 3 or 4 minutes behind, you can always Swallowing Pit to get that tempo back. The other thing it does really well is it's great at making zombie minions, specifically zombie Pegasus, which we'll see a lot in this game later. You've got Death Bomb, which does a crap ton of damage, especially with aura stacking. You can turn a Pegasus from full HP. We won't see it this game, but you can turn the Pegasus from 80 or 100 HP into a zombie, and it spawns on like 50 or 60 HP. Is ridiculous. And then you've also got Aura of Decay, which is just a great spell overall. Great AoE, great position control, and great at making zombie minions, of course. So we've also got Rain of Fire. So we started the game, I trapped Seer, he Rain of Fires my Swarm. That spell's getting nerfed next patch, by the way, which I'm sure many people are quite excited about. Alongside with Totem. Totem's also getting its own nerf, but we'll see what it comes to. Yeah, hasn't been finally decided, but I think those are probably some of the most excited nerfs people have had for a while. Rain of Fire and Totem. Look, it took us a while to get those nerfs to come in, but they'll be here soon. Anyway, I bring out Totem. Seer summons a Swarm, zombifies everything. This looks bad, but it's really not that bad. There were 2 lines of play. I could have Rain of Fire and killed everything, but instead I decide to stack my own Totem and actually get a zombie Totem instead. 2 reasons, because one, doing so it would kill his Swarm. I'll stack his Swarm and then his own aura would have killed the Swarm, or a zombie Pegasus aura would have killed the Swarm, so I knew that. The second thing is I want a zombie Totem because I wanted it for insurance, basically, right? If you have a zombie Totem versing a pit book when the only main threats they have is like zombie Pegasus and Rain of Fire, Rain of Arrows, you can't really lose. Like, there's no way for them to really kill your Totem. So I wanted this nice and early, just so I know, if everything goes to shit, the worst thing that can happen is a draw. So that's why I wanted to develop it nice and early. Anyway, we've got our zombie Totem here. So currently I'm in a pretty good spot, and Seer needs to think of ways to kill this Totem. He doesn't really have that many. The only thing he can do is he's got Rain of Fire, he's got Rain of Arrows, and then following that, his strongest spell is basically Drain Bolt. Now, I try to stack both. As you can see, I miss. So this ends up being kind of important because missing 15 health on that Totem does make it a lot more vulnerable later, which is a shame. But anyway, that's alright, we can play slowly. I bring out the Pegasus here. Our Totem is still healing, which is great. He blocks off my Swarm. And yeah, so far so good. Nothing too exciting. This game starts off a little bit slow, but it does have quite a nice ending towards it in the end. He drains the Totem here. He doesn't really have a better play, which honestly, fair play to him. It brings the Totem to about 46 health, and I'm starting to get a little bit worried about Rain of Fire, Rain of Arrows, so I want to try to preserve its health as much as possible. Right, so I bring it here. My Swarm's trapped. I don't have any way to heal it, so yeah, I do what I can to try to keep it alive for now. I also summon the second Totem, I believe. Yeah, there we go. We summon the second Totem. just so I can keep the zombie totem alive while still having a totem to establish board presence. Seer was trying, I think he thought he could, skim the Pegasus over. Doesn't quite work out, so it's a bit of a shame. Brings out the swarm, and now I can use my zombie totem to really absorb and heal up a lot from his swarm, which is great. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, so far so good. All of his minions are under control from my totems. I decided protection shield here because I was going to flight the following turn. I know sometimes people like to flight and prot together, but just in case for whatever reason you don't want to flight, you can protection shield. That gives you the option of flighting later. You're not locking yourself into a particular play. Your Rain of Arrows kills off my totem. I probably could have positioned it a little bit better, but it's a shame. He definitely wanted my totem dead, and now it's dead. So there's only so much that I can do. Anyway, we bring the Pegasus over. We want to get rid of his swarm ASAP. And in response, he develops another Pegasus. So all of this stuff, a lot of the standard 60G peg on peg action, early game, very, very slow, which is fine. Which is why you really need swarms to start moving the game along, because swarms are the best way for you to secure an advantage. So what I do here is I decide to pebble down, and I think this is something that people don't do enough, right? In the ideal world, the swarm would have lived, but it died, which is fine. But if the swarm lives, I think people don't free their minions as much as they should, because instead of freeing their minions, they often summon a new one. But the thing to remember is, if you summon a new minion, and if you free a minion, they're effectively the same. You're introducing a new minion onto the board, right? So, and the thing is that when you free a minion, you actually open up that minion slot as well. So it's like you summon a new minion, but you also free the slot, which is better, right? So right now, what I'm doing is basically I'm waiting for the swarm to kill the tree, and I'll free it after a few turns. So I was adjusting my music here. So I do an ice shield to try block my totem from things like Rain of Fire, and I actually end up getting it stuck on this side. So it's not the best play, but there's a few turns here that are pretty whatever from both Seer and I. Like, we're just sort of sitting here waiting for things to happen. Bring out another totem here. Seers really doesn't like totems, so he Rain of Fires it, does a crap ton of damage. Once again, really glad that thing's getting nerfed. And the tree's finally dead. So what I do is I fly over here and I release the swarm with a blast from the past. But you'll see I don't actually move the swarm because you can't see it in the replay. But one other thing, it's about time management in 60G, right? I spent about 15 turns flying over there, 15 seconds flying over there. I spent about another 15 flying back. I don't have enough time to use the swarm and then move back. So I just open up for the following turn. I get a great pebbles here. I kill the peg and I break the tower. And I'm also in a position where he can't actually use Sanctuary on me. He gets a little bit unlucky, hits himself with the Water Troll, which is great for me, but yeah, summons out another peg. So yeah, all this stuff is fairly standard. We can finally bring our swarm out and start getting some, I guess you could say, momentum going along this game. And I guess you could say I end up doing a bit of a mistake here. You'll see in a second what I end up doing. So I decide to pebble shot the Pegasus. I mean, there wasn't really a better move for me to do, right? I could have drained the troll. I don't really care about the troll. I could have pebble shot at him, but I thought, you know what? I just want this Pegasus dead ASAP, so let's try get rid of it however I can. This is when you see, I guess, the power of Death Bomb in this book, or Death Bomb in 60 Grassy in general. It's actually a very, very strong spell. So he gets the stack on the Pegasus below because he's got, Pegasus on top, and he also stacks his own Pegasus with himself, with his troll, and it brings the Pegasus straight up to 100 HP. And at this point, I'm like, well, shit, you know, I clearly can't do anything about this. I can Rain of Fire it, but the peg on top is 100 HP. There's no way I'm killing that, so it's going to be really, really tough to get rid of it. The best thing I've got is Dark Knight, which you can pit, and I've got Pebble Shot. So at this point, I'm thinking, the game's fairly drawn. Like there needs to be a significant shake-up for me to somehow win. So I might need to play for a draw, which is fine. I don't mind that, but I guess it's just good to know, you know, what state of the game it's in and what you should be playing for. So I Rain of Fire, kill the troll, kill the peg below, leaving him with one zombie peg, which is great. Seer walks over here and then decides not to, and he goes back and develops a swarm here, I believe. I could be wrong. I think he develops a swarm. Yeah, he develops a swarm here. So this is one of those things where if I'm playing for a fairly slow game, the idea is if I want to draw out this game, I need Zombie Totem. And that was something that we talked about at the very beginning. Zombie Totem would wall off, you know, it would wall off any swarms, it would wall off any zombie Pegasus. I can go to the side, I can block it off, and it's a very, very safe store with no way for him to break it, which is great. But the premise is that I actually need to have a Zombie Totem. So that's my plan. I hit the Zombie Totem once, I have Swarm off cooldown, so next turn I can hit the Totem again and summon the Swarm to start developing a healthy Zombie Totem. So I wall off his Swarm here just to make sure there's no shenanigans coming from his end. He comes over, he's obviously doesn't want it to happen, and he drains the Totem, and it actually leaves him in quite a flashball position. The other thing he does, which is a slight mistake, is he ends up leaving the Pegasus aura, the zombie Pegasus aura, on top of his Pegasus, which means it's going to hit it for 15 the following turn. So if he didn't do that, I would have had to hit his Pegasus twice with my Swarm to take it from him, but now I can actually hit him with my with the Swarm aura, flash him off, and then just take his Pegasus. I also think he didn't realize he was in such a flashball spot. But anyway, we'll flash him over. Okay, great. So he gates back here, and now it's quite a crucial point in this game. So he's burned gate, meaning that and I see an opportunity here. So as soon as he gates, I realize he's on 167 health. There might be an opportunity for us to win the game. And I guess the thing about Swallowing Pit is that, you know, it always kills the Dark Knight at any given point in time. I'll pause this slightly here just because I'll go into detail a little bit about what actually happens, especially for newer players. It might be a bit confusing as to what's going on. So hold on, I'll let the Dark Knight animation play out. So I guess when you have Swallowing Pit versus Dark Knight, the best way to use Swallowing Pit is basically as soon as the Dark Knight comes out, you Swallowing Pit it. Then you have no risks, there's no problems, you generally won't have any issues, right? Now, I summoned the Dark Knight in this position, and he basically had to Swallowing Pit it. Because if he didn't Swallowing Pit the Dark Knight right now, I would charge him the following turn. Like, he could drain, and I'll charge him the following turn, and he'll die. The only other play he may have been able to do is he could have gone for a reverse flash, and try to sink me, but that was quite risky. And when you really think about it, he had Swallowing Pit, and that was the much more natural decision to go by. But I do something quite... it's a very small thing. So I put myself on top of him because I want to have the aura stack. You know, we spent the entire game, you saw how the first 20 to 30 turns went, right? Just Pegasus, 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 back and forth, Sanctuary, Towers. It was getting nowhere. So if I was ever going to win a game, it had to be now. He's on 167 HP, which is a crap ton, right? My book's strongest damage source is Pebble Shot, it's 50 damage. So how on earth am I going to do that? Well, he's forced to cast Swallowing Pit. So by standing on top of him, I can guarantee that the auras stack on him. So I've got both the Dark Knight and the Swarm here. So I've got the Dark Knight and the Swarm here. If he casts Swallowing Pit right now, he's actually going to hit him and me. So he's going to stack himself for 30 plus another 30. So he's going to stack himself for 60 damage. And then the following turn, because the turn he casts Swallowing Pit, he takes the damage. And the turn after, he also takes damage. So he'll take another 60 afterwards if I'm still standing on top of him. So for a total of 120 damage, which is a crap ton, right? It's a lot of damage. So that's the idea. So we'll see it play out a little bit here. He casts Swallowing Pit because he has no better move, mind you. Okay, so he's down to 107. Now what I do here is, for example, if I jump up here and I purple shot him, he'll go down to 57. And then he'll take another 30 from the aura, because if I purple shot, I'm not on his head. So he'll take another 30 plus 50. He'll take 80 and he'll be on 27 health. The alternative is I drain him, right? So he takes 30 and he gets stacked for 60. So he takes 90 damage and then he's on a 107. Yes, 107 health. Sorry, 17 health, sorry. So he's still alive either way. And then he can probably Sanctuary, he might be able to escape to the side. It's very, very risky for him, right? It's a great position for me, but there's ways of him living, and I didn't want that. So what I do is I do a aura stacking mechanic again, which is in Arc 2, you can actually stack multiple things, or you can stack an aura multiple times. So as an example, both myself and the Swarm are touching Seer at this point in time. So with the aura, it hits Seer, it hits me, and it stacks onto Seer. It hits the Swarm, and it stacks onto Seer. So it actually deals 45 per stack. So what that means, I wasn't sure if I could pull this off, but I ended up getting quite lucky and I did. So I summoned the Swarm. The Swarm deals 30 damage because it stacked me and it hit him. And then each of the aura stacks deal another 45, so it ends up dealing 90. So on his turn, as you'll see, when I let this play, he'll pop. So on his turn, he actually pops. So I was very fortunate in the sense that that was basically the only way for me to have won this game, right? Playing against Pitbook is really, really hard when Swarms don't really do that much. He has Rain of Fire, he has Rain of Arrows, he has Zombie Pegasus. It's really hard for my Swarms to do anything. Dark Knight doesn't really do anything because he can just pit it. So it was a very opportune moment for me to go in there and just stack him with his own auras, and it dealt about 170 to 180 over the span of 2 turns, or you could even say 1 turn, because basically he used pit and then on his very next turn he died. So he took 180 damage between his last turn and his next turn. So yeah, it was quite an explosive end, I would say, to that game, which I thought was quite interesting. You know, Seer played very well throughout, which was great. But yeah, that's an interesting book that he was running there. Something a little bit different, something a little bit to spice up the usual 60 Grassy meta.